Patrick Cook here. So welcome to session number 38 of our Mandelbulb3D Epic Rendering tutorial series. So I did some minor adjustments. I didn't have to do much, right? I didn't have to do much. If you remember, the levels were already very close. The curves were already very close. I didn't have to do much. And that's what you want. You don't want to come to this point and then have this mess that you're trying to figure out how to handle. The rule of thumb is do all you can back in Mandelbulb to get your best possible scene in terms of lighting and coloring, because then when you go to render everything, all of that coloring and lighting is all baked in, and you want to get it close in Mandelbulb and not rely upon doing anything other than, ideally, minor tweaks out here in another piece of software after you've done all that rendering work. The next thing we need to do is we need to resize this for our 30 by 20 inch print. We know from previous sessions that a 30 inch at 300 dots per inch is going to be 9,000 pixels. A 20 inch is going to be at 300 dots per inch is going to be 6,000 pixels. All right. So what we're looking for is a final output of 9,000 by 6,000 pixels. And as you, let's get that up here. Let's do the image, scale image. Okay, that's what we want right there. Now we know that we don't want to give the printer something other than the pixel dimensions that they need. All right, because we don't want them to get into upscaling and downscaling and playing around with our work. Ideally, we want the print lab to take what we give them and go straight to the printer. Ideally. But we want to give them some leeway to work with. It's okay if they make some adjustments. We just don't want to give them something that they make massive adjustments with and then try to give us a product that we're going to love and not return. Okay? But we don't want to give them too much leeway, but we want to give them some. But when it comes to the resolution, if we give them too much pixels, they're going to start throwing stuff away to get everything down to the 30 by 20. So we want to try to get close. So look, if I'm in the GIMP here, now you notice this little X right here. All right. Now that's meaning that it's going to maintain our aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is the ratio or the relationship between the width and the height. All right, and we want 30 by 20. So that's going to have a certain aspect ratio that we don't want to change. So if we come in here and with this aspect ratio locked here, we come in here and if we put 9,000 in there, okay, right, there's my 9,000. Okay, I unlocked it. All right, and I allowed GIMP to do the calculation. What did I have? I had 13,500 in there. Okay. And, okay, so I want 9,000 by 6,000. Good, there we go, 9,000 by 600. And I have basically unlocked the aspect ratio so that I could be in control. Okay. Now, here's the resolution is 72. Now, this is an important point right here. All right, this X resolution, 72, that is the amount of pixels per inch on my electronic display. that is not relevant to the printer. That's relevant to you as a display on your LCD. It's not relevant to the printer, who is going to output the number of pixels per inch in what in their nomenclature is dots per inch. So you don't need to worry about this. You don't, for instance, you don't need to crank that to 300. Oh, goodness. Okay. You don't need to do that. You do not need to do that. They need to do that. You don't need to do that. All right. So I'm just going to leave it at 72 because this is electronic display resolution right down in here. Electronic display. All right. So if I, with my 9000 by 600, now I don't need to play games. I don't need to play games. I don't need to make it 9100 so that they have a little bit extra border room. They'll do that. They'll do that. They'll fudge with it. You just don't want to give them so much out of whack compared to what they need. But you're okay with them fudging a little bit, tweaking to make the final output good. All right, let's scale that. Let's see what happens. Okay, scaling. All right, very good. All right. So that's what I'm going to send the printer. All right. If I go back to the image scale, let's see, where'd they go? Here we go. All right, it's stuck at 9000 by 6000. All right, that's 30 by 20. All right, let's cancel that. That looks good to me. All right, I've retained my shadows. GIMP has done a very good job in reducing. I don't want to be doing any quality adjustments now. I don't want to do this when I've scaled down. I got to be done. I got to be done. Because when you scale down, your GIMP, your software, is eliminating pixels. So do all that kind of work in advance. If you wanted to sharpen, we don't need to sharpen. I would want to do that prior to downscaling. But I don't feel I need to do any sharpening because this is a native rendering and it came out really good. Sharpening can get you in a lot of trouble because you're in here and you're sharpening for your display and you give it to the print lab and they're out there trying to sharpen it for the print. And so you ultimately get something that's over sharpened and you're not going to be happy with that. So be very, very, very careful with sharpening. Only sharpen if you really need to. Spend your time with exposure, levels, scaling, cropping if you really needed to. I could have cropped this out right up in here. It kind of really doesn't serve any purpose anymore. And if I was to crop, I should have cropped prior to scaling it so that it would scale down correctly to 9000 by 6000. But I kind of like this little guy hanging out here. He kind of indicates that there's something else going on outside of the frame. Okay. Also keep in mind that when you are scaling, that you gotta kind of ask yourself whether or not you're going to have a frame, excuse me, a mat on your final printout. All right, if you go off and you order a frame and a mat, and the mat itself is 30 inches, all right, or 20 inches, and then you have a cutout in there that's something less than 30 by 20, obviously you're going to be clipping a whole bunch of the area of the top and the left and the right and the bottom. Okay, so you kind of wonder, what kind of frame am I going to have? I'm not too much concerned about the frame right here. I'm concerned about getting back a 30 by 20 print that looks good. Okay? All right, so before you scale, you want to do all your quality work. You want to do your levels. You want to do your any color adjustments you want to do, any curves you want to do that first. If you have to sharpen, if you really feel you have to sharpen, do that before you scale down. Any cropping before you scale down, okay? So I've gotten to a point here where I've got a pretty decent rig here. All right. All right, and let's come back to the next session. We're going to talk about saving this out. Okay, I'll see you there.